Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to your basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
TV. And then there were four.
4 teams left. The conference finals is beginning tonight as of recording, but by the time you're listening to this, game one of the Nuggets Lakers series should have already happened. But we're still going to be talking about those today. We're going to be providing our predictions for the conference finals. We're going to be talking about all of the headlines like after some of the teams got eliminated, because there is a lot to talk about. And of course, you're going to hear some of the staples of the podcast, including the quiz at the end. Should be another great episode. But before we start, we have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at the Knockdown J. In the description below, you could find that. And in terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. If you're on YouTube, remember to subscribe, hit the like, and also hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're any of the podcast listeners on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff to help out with the numbers. Jay, are you ready to talk some NBA hoops?
Let's go, bro. We got a lot to get into.
We do have a lot to get into, and we are going to start off with possibly, I don't even know. Like, there's like a lot of these game sixes, game sevens are very disappointing, especially for the teams that got eliminated. But we're going to start with the biggest surprise, which is the game seven performance from the Philadelphia 76ers as they get eliminated by the Boston Celtics in pretty embarrassing fashion. It was a close game in the first half, but when the third quarter came around and the 76ers only scored 10 points in the third quarter, could not stop the Boston Celtics. This series was over from there. And I hate to do it to this guy, but the MVP of this year, Joel Embiid, did not have a fantastic performance, going 5 for 18, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4 turnovers. I know the discourse around the 76ers has to do with James Harden and how he's not a play performer, Doc Rivers, and how he chokes in the playoffs. But Jay, I'm going to throw this question over to you. Do we have to have those same concerns about Joel Embiid now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, the easy route when you look at the 76ers team is, the Boston Celtics are just their kryptonite, right? This is something that Joel Embiid has even openly admitted to the media. Is like, it's not a rivalry. They kick our tail every single time we see them.
Yeah.
And all this is doing is adding to the narrative, right? And like you mentioned beforehand, Doc Rivers obviously has the track record. The graphics were already made going into Game 7 of like,
Yes.
man, look, dude, this guy has built up a pretty bad history of letting these things slip through his fingers. And James Harden in a closeout Game 7 had less points than PJ Tucker. Like we can't let that flow over our heads. But at the same time, TV, I do think it's very important to talk about Embiid in the sense of looking at this MVP award. And again, we take the regular season into account. We have to make sure that the MVP, we have to make sure that we push the narrative that the MVP is a regular season award. And we understand that. But a crazy stat popped up that I couldn't help but make sure to screenshot so we didn't overlook it, because it's kind of a crazy one. It says Joel Embiid averaged 33.1 points per game in the regular season. That was the highest amongst all players. I think he was the scoring title leader this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the postseason, he averaged 23.7 points per game. According to ESPN, that says that drop-off, which is 9.4 points per game less than his regular season stats, is the largest differential by that year's MVP in NBA history. Basically, what that means is that this was one of those MVP seasons that culminated into a postseason where Joel Embiid did not build off of that. And if anything, he shrunk significantly under the bright lights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand people are going to point to, he played with the brace. There was that instant where he played without the brace. He looked kind of okay, but obviously still a little hobbled. Bro, it's always going to be something with Joel, though. I think that's the point. I think that's the point we're at, is it's always going to be something with Joel. And I think that a conference finals is not in their future as long as you understand that and as long as you know that. As long as Joel Embiid is considered as your top player while also having that caveat attached to him, I don't think this Sixers team is ever going to make a conference finals, and that means they're dang sure not going to win a championship. So I think that this is definitely one of those series where there's plenty of scapegoats to go around. But I think you have to point at the man in charge, being Joel Embiid, because of all the guys that you needed to come out and ball. Joel Embiid did not do so. And this, mind you, this I think he had a quote coming off of the MVP, off of getting the MVP award, that basically said that like this game 7 are like the moments you play for. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell.
Could not tell with Joel Embiid, man. And I agree with your point. It's when in the regular season, we've seen Joel Embiid reach levels that he has not reached in his career yet. And that is why, I mean, he deserved it. Let's be completely honest. He did 100% deserve this MVP award. There's nothing to take away from him in that aspect. But when it comes to playoff basketball, we've tried to make excuse for Embiid year in, year out. And at some point, we have to question, why do we have to make this many excuses for a top 5 NBA player who, like, in the league, probably like year in, year out as well? And here's the thing about Joel Embiid. Him shrinking in the playoffs, looking through the stats, it's nothing new. His points per games drop. Yes, his rebounding his numbers go up, his assists drop, the turnovers go up, and the efficiency dips. This is nothing new with Joel Embiid. Just looking at his just looking at his career averages, he averages 27, 11, and 3. Amazing numbers on his career. Amazing. The playoffs is a completely different story for him, where he like goes 3 less points per game. Like I said, lower shooting percentages, significantly lower 3-point percentage. He's like at 28% in his playoff career. His injuries are something to be is a worthy discussion. Saying, oh, he's just not healthy. Oh, he can't really make it. Like there's always just like something bad luck with Embiid. But at some point, those excuses that we have been making for Embiid for the past half decade, we have to question ourselves. Like, why do we have to make these excuses for him? We don't make the same excuses for LeBron James, for Kevin Durant. When they go down in these situations, we look to them saying, what didn't you do enough? We look at Nikola Jokic saying, oh, this guy is supposed to be the back-to-back MVP, and he hasn't been able to take like some of these teams out the first round. We have to have these discussions with Embiid. I feel like Embiid has got a pass over the past few years, and especially with like the people he's had around him, like James Harden, because he has been notoriously poor in playoff situations. Doc Rivers and his choking of a lot of playoff leads, he did it again this year. But I just feel like Embiid has avoided a lot of discourse, especially back in the day when Ben Simmons was on his team as well. He avoided a lot of the blame because of like people around him. And I think at this point, like, especially this year, their best chance, they got 2 really good Harden games, which led to key wins, which we didn't expect the 76ers to have. They go to a game 7, their best chance in a while, and he just did not perform.
Yeah, so I want to actually ask you a question too, and it's kind of about the MVP award in this sense. And I have to credit my brother because he made this joke, but I think it's something that kind of spurs a little bit of discourse in this sense. And again, reminding everybody, this is a regular season award, but there is a little bit of revisionist history that tends to be attached to the MVP and their performance in the postseason. My brother made the joke when we were talking about Embiid winning the MVP. He said that this was the here damn like award, in sense of the idea that it's like, okay, we've kind of passed over you for the last 2 years. There's 2 past seasons that arguably you could have been the winner. The guy who could have won it over you this year again was the same guy the last 2 seasons. Here, damn, let's make sure that he gets the award this time so we can go ahead and kill this discourse that makes it sound like the media just hates Joel Embiid, right?
Yeah.
TV, he who laughs loudest, right? And
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic sitting pretty right now in the Western Conference Finals and might arguably be the best player in terms of playoff performances left in the postseason. He might be the best, or he's at least tied with Jimmy Butler probably for the best performer left in the postseason.
Like 100%. And we talked about how Embiid when it comes to these playoff situations kind of shrinks. When it comes to Jokic, year in, year out, he elevates his game into playoffs to levels which we're like, damn, like this guy was the MVP and he's somehow doing this like better. like so far I mean, his career averages so far 20, 10, and basically 7 assists per game. In the playoffs, 27, 12, 7 assists per game. Um, 40% from three. He's a 41% 3-point shooter in his playoff career. 52% from the field. 82% at the line. This guy like takes his game to the whole nother level. And even in the playoffs, teams still can't figure out Nikola Jokic. So when it comes to the debate around him and Embiid, yes, Embiid has the defensive capabilities. We've been saying that that's what potentially gives him the edge over Jokic. But when it comes to winning basketball, when it comes to ultimately who can take your team further into the playoffs, Jokic, this is his like second conference finals in the last 4 years. He plays better in the playoffs. The narrative should be leaning heavy towards Nikola Jokic's side at this point. And again, I mean, I don't think he cares about MVPs anymore. He has two of them things already. This and the whole thing about Embiid getting the MVP this year feels like the fact that they didn't want to give Jokic a third MVP as well. So there's that to take to take into account. But results, man, the results are there.
Yeah, man, I think revisionist history will also kind of tell us that I think Nikola Jokic was just a better player. Again, the regular season, I think if you do 2020 hindsight, you would give it to Jokic just based off of his performances in the postseason, also factoring into how you feel about how this season went. I do still feel like Joel Embiid was deserving of the MVP nonetheless. Like I said, I personally had Jokic for most of the year. I told you when we did our predictions that I was picking Joel Embiid strictly off of the fact that I think the media vote and the narrative was going to carry a lot. And I think in a lot of ways it still did, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you just look at the way this season culminates, and especially with however this series ends between them and the Lakers, which of course we'll get into a little bit later, I think people are going to start to put more respect on Joker's name. And I think a weird thing about even this year's MVP race, right, was this conversation around Nikola Jokic and like him being the worst like 3-time MVP in league history because like what has he done in terms of postseason success and different things like that. Well, Joel Embiid is not building much of a great narrative for himself as a reigning MVP as of now as well. This is a guy who has never reached an Eastern Conference Finals, and here is, like you mentioned beforehand, here is Joker in his second Western Conference Finals in 4 seasons. So if you even want to just narrow it down to, oh, okay, production on the floor in the biggest moments somehow factoring into how you feel about MVP, Joker has more postseason success than
Yeah.
Joel Embiid as well, which in that sense would make him at least more deserving than Joel Embiid in terms of having a real discussion about MVP. So, like I said, shout out to Joel for winning, but I think that even if Joker goes out in the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers, which I'm not picking them to do, I think they're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. But again, we'll get into that little later. But if especially if he does what I think he's capable of doing, I think this is going to really manipulate the narrative around Joker because I think he's one of like the most disrespected MVPs that we've had in a long time. And that feels crazy for a guy who's been this good.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you mentioned, regular season award, Embiid deserves it. Joker, of course, like going with the name, the Joker as well. He's definitely gonna have the last laugh, especially with how well he has been playing and his team has been playing in the playoffs. We're gonna discuss that series against the Lakers later on in the episode. Let's move on to some other losses in the association because man, there's gonna be some losses that change. That's gonna be like changing a lot of situations out west. And pursue the question. I'm not gonna talk about each of these individually, but
Mhm.
Jay, I'm gonna throw this over to you. Which was the more embarrassing loss, the Golden State Warriors or the Phoenix Suns?
Phoenix, easy. It was an easy answer. And when I thought about it, I had to look over this question a couple times and really ponder over it. But after kind of sitting, it got easier over time because it's not that Phoenix lost the way they did that just kind of makes it like, oh, okay, very bad loss, very bad circumstances against a team that I think I think they are technically more talented than if you just look at the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
But It's the fact that it happened again.
Yeah.
That I think that's what makes it worse because I understand for the narrative for the Golden State Warriors would be like, oh, they got blown out in the game that's considered the end of the era. But here's the thing: for me, I always viewed the end of the quote unquote Warriors dynasty ending out in flames. It always
Yeah.
seemed like one of those things that like if it was gonna end, it wasn't gonna be a graceful Game 7 loss that you lose the championship to the Boston Celtics, and that's how you're dynasty fades into the ether with Draymond Green going to the Lakers or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson's too expensive to continue to keep on the roster, or Jordan Poole is washed, so they have to trade him, and all these other crazy things, right?
Yeah.
I never figured that they would go into an offseason where it was like, we were almost close, but now we don't
Yeah.
have enough money to maintain the team. So goodbye, Dynasty. No, I always figured that if this thing were going to blow up, it was going to have to hit rock bottom for us to
Yeah.
for us to truly visualize the end of a dynasty. Let's talk about, for example, another great example of a dynasty abruptly ending, right? The
Yeah.
San Antonio Spurs had a dynastic run for 20 plus seasons, and they watched Kawhi Leonard get his legs, he falls in a bad way against
Yeah.
Zaza Pachulia. I know the cheap shot thing and all that great stuff or
Yeah.
whatever. That ends a significant dynastic run in terms of making the postseason. And this team hasn't been close to what they were in what 3-4 seasons now, at least
Yeah.
bare minimum. This is a San Antonio team that was signed dynastically representative of like good basketball, Western Conference leaders, all these other things, and now they're a team that's in the lottery every season for the last 3-4 years now. Dynasties, when they come to the end, they're not graceful, bro. There's not too many
Yeah.
last dances out here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Phoenix losing the way they did kind of showed that they are still a little further away from being real title contenders than most would have hoped, considering the
Yeah.
ascension of Devin Booker. They ended in the same spot that they did last year with a team that technically, talent wise, is probably better than that team last year.
Yeah, especially with the addition of Kevin Durant, you would like they were hoping that was going to be able to take them over the hump, but it ended in the exact same way. Maybe not in Game 7. It did not end in Game 7 last year, but I find it very funny that they lost to a generational talented European white dude in an elimination game at home. I just find that very, very coincidental because Jokic absolutely destroyed him in that game. That
Mm.
entire performance was kind of hard to watch, especially with Devin Booker, who's been one of the better playoff performers, finishing off the series with 12 points. Paul Dillon Brooks did not talk to the media after the game. It was not a graceful ending for the Phoenix Suns once again. But I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, the Golden State Warrior loss sucked, but this feels like it's been building up throughout the entire season, starting with the whole Draymond Green Jordan knockout in from the preseason. There's always felt like there's some tension throughout the season, and the fact that they finished as a 6 seed with this sort of team that just went to the NBA Finals, something just seemed off about this team. And although they were kind of like treading along, they got the win against the Sacramento Kings. It just still felt kind of off. And the Nuggets, and the Lakers, who were catching fire at the right time, everything was cooking for them. Took advantage. They were able to take him down. Phoenix, on the other hand, they have some may argue have two of the three. Like I wouldn't say argue. They have the two of the three of the best players in that series. Both of them needed to be all-time great for them to even have a chance. And like you mentioned in your when you were talking about it, they're a lot farther away than we think because as seen with the Denver Nuggets, a complete roster is what really sets apart like some of these teams. Like we talked about big like the discussion around big threes over the past decade and stuff like that being kind of the norm in the NBA. Like that's what you need to win a title.
Mhm.
Now you look at these Final Four teams. What do they have? They have a duo, like a top duo in the league, like one of the best duos in the league, and then you fill them out with players that know how to play their role. Monty Williams did not know who was going to come off his bench game in, game out. He did not know his rotations. And that really killed them in that series. When you look at these Final Four teams and the Nuggets, the Heat, the Lakers, the Boston Celtics, each of these teams have a dynamic duo and have really solid role players around them to really fill in the holes that the Stars can't fill out. And that's what happened with the Phoenix Suns. Now, did we think they were going to lose in such dramatic fashion again? No. It was really funny, though. It was very funny to watch that game play out. But at the end of the day, it's still like very, very embarrassing. Cameron Payne was the only one keeping you alive in that first quarter when the Denver Nuggets went on a 17-0 run. It was really bad there for the Phoenix Suns, and it's something they could bounce back from for sure. There's some rumors about them circulating around the potential trading of Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton is now on the trade block once again, but I feel like something this can recover. But I don't know about you, but I find it like harder to believe that the Warriors are going to be able to bounce back from this compared to how Phoenix is.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing too is when you talk about the potential moving forward. I definitely think the other part that makes the Phoenix thing a little worse is the fact that I feel like they they had a very good shot to kind of shock a lot of people with how top heavy they are,
Yeah.
but they also have a ton of questions that are now springing up that maybe weren't as prevalent before, but they are a lot more prominent now. See, as opposed to, again, the Warriors, with them ending out the way they are, a lot of the things that we're asking about the Warriors moving forward are things we were kind of already generating a little bit of um skepticism around, right? Would Draymond
Hmm.
Green remain a Warrior after this season? After the incident with him and Jordan Poole, how will their relationship be able to withstand an 82 game season plus the postseason? Which, if you ask Jordan Poole, I think his actual quote, I have his quote somewhere around. It says, "I don't have no answer for you. It's just been business. It's
Yeah.
been basketball." That's what he said.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
around this idea that basically the locker room vibes have not been good. Another thing that goes back to what you said earlier about kind of everything slowly culminating to this, right? The
Yeah.
terrible road record, all of these things that were just generating a lot of doubt in the Warriors this entire time. So them going into the offseason, a lot of the questions that they have were questions we probably had about them a lot of this season. And just now it's kind of all reached this crescendo. As opposed to Phoenix, I think the way that this series ended specifically, where I think that Joker and Denver in general kind of poked a lot of holes into what the Phoenix Suns new iteration looks like, they've got to really look themselves in the mirror. Now, that started with firing Coach Monty Williams, which I think was more of like a need a new voice in the room kind of thing.
Yeah. I feel like
After,
that too. Yeah.
losing DeAndre Ayton, kind of, I think, mentally disengaging with Jay Crowder before their trade.
Hmm.
Um, Different things of that nature. Then, of course, obviously, back-to-back seasons where your season blows up in terms of how the final game in the postseason for your team goes.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think there's just a lot of things that they are going to have to reflect on in terms of their roster. Chris Paul having a partially guaranteed contract being one of them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they've got a lot of interesting stuff that I think maybe we weren't beating the drum for answers for beforehand. But after the way they got mollywopped, those questions are like at the forefront now in terms of the future of their organization.
Yeah. 100%. Quick question before we move on. Whose future, if you were to say for next season, who is in a better position to win a title? Would you say Phoenix? Would you say Golden State?
I think it's Phoenix. I think Steph Curry is probably still the best player out of the entire group. I think he's
Yeah.
proven that. I think even in this postseason, despite the way they went out, I think he's still proven that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Clay is on the back nine. I don't think Draymond will make it into next season on the Warriors with his contract situation. Jordan Poole could be a pretty decent trade chip as a guy that I think is kind of already kind of mentally disengaged with this
Yeah.
organization after the way this offseason went. And obviously his play this season kind of proved that as well. Jonathan Kaminga seems like a guy that might be potentially putting in a trade request if he hasn't already.
Hmm.
Um, because his role was oddly reduced considering the fact that
Yeah.
he had an amazing run last postseason.
Hmm.
Wiggins has a ceiling on him, I think, despite the way he played last postseason. I think that's the max version of
Yeah.
Wiggins that we'll see moving forward. This is a guy that, Nate Duncan of the Dunked On podcast said might be the best two-way wing in the NBA. And I think there might still be some validity to that.
Yeah.
But I still feel like he comes with a ceiling though. That doesn't just because he's a top two-way wing, I think he's still a guy who middles out at what a lot of people kind of view Mikal Bridges as middling out at most of the
Yeah.
time, which is unfortunate because I think Andrew Wiggins in the earlier stages of his career definitely was considered to have much more upside than that. But I think that's just where he's topped out at. As opposed to Phoenix, they have DeAndre Ayton as a trade chip. They don't have to pay Chris Paul because of the partially guaranteed. They
Yeah.
have Kevin Durant, right? And they'll have a
Yeah.
full offseason with him and Devin Booker, who are arguably let's say two of the top 12 players in the NBA as of
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just think that Phoenix is better positioned to make, turn water into wine with the situation they have as opposed to Golden State. That it's like, I think no matter what they're willing to sacrifice, it's not going to be enough to keep things chugging.
Yeah. I mean, the Phoenix Suns, we know what they're going to at least come into next year. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. That's for sure what they're going to be coming into next season with. The Golden State Warriors, on the other hand, we don't know. Besides Steph Curry, we don't know
Yeah.
how much this roster turnover is going to be, and all that. So there's going to be a lot of question marks between these two teams going into the offseason. Let's see if the Warriors are still going to become stay relevant. I feel like the Suns are still going to be in the mix, but they still have a lot of question marks between Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, and if they can create a solid team to help support Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Because let's be honest, what they showed this year, they have no bench, they have no fifth guy onwards. They have to figure that stuff out. Moving on to the next topic, we're going to talk about the final team that's lost basically, or we can this could be a section about us dissing Julius Randle again. But let's talk about the New York Knicks and how they've absolutely how do I want to say this? Let Jalen Brunson down. They have let Jalen Brunson down once again. Um, he played phenomenal in that final game in the Game 6 versus the Miami Heat. 41 points, fantastic shooting splits, but everyone else didn't show up. And they still had a chance to win it. They even did a good job guarding Jimmy Butler, but they still couldn't get it done. And once again, we're going to be highlighting the main culprit in all this, all NBA second team member Julius Randle. Jay,
Yeah.
quick thoughts quickly on like the Knicks law. Is this like something that you I mean, we kind of expected, or just like any quick thoughts on that, like on the way their season ended?
I mean, TV, we talked about this beforehand just because of the fact that uh, Jimmy Butler had a slow start to the series. It was one of those things that seemed like it was going to backfire eventually. Like, I just don't think the Knicks were more talented than Miami. I don't think that the Knicks were going to be able to out hustle and out physical Miami. And this was a good BAM series. This was a good series where some of the role players really showed up. Max Strus, again, another good series for him as well. So I think, like you mentioned at the top, Jalen Brunson being let down, definitely, because if you talk to Knicks fans right now, Jalen Brunson might be like one of the top 5 postseason performers in Knicks history already, and he hasn't even been there that
Yeah,
long. But they have also only been to the postseason like 3 times in 20 years or
yeah,
something like that. So he's
yeah,
giving them a lot of optimism, and I think if you're a Knicks fan, getting to the semifinal round this postseason, considering you didn't make any crazy significant upgrades to your roster aside from signing Jalen Brunson, should give you a lot to really be confident in. Um, Again, an All NBA season from Julius Randle. We'll get into him a little later, but nonetheless, an All NBA season from him. Jalen Brunson, I think, was deserving of at least being in the conversation for an All NBA position. Now, I don't think he deserved to make the team over some of the guys that were on the list, but I think he deserves to at least be mentioned in that conversation. I think even Coach Eric Spoelstra mentioned that he should be more in the conversation with those All NBA caliber guys. RJ Barrett had a good series. I mean, at the end of the day, he had some stinkers here and there, but RJ Barrett showed some dog in this series. And
yeah,
I think the main thing moving forward is like, wow, like how can we continue to build off of this in this manner where we're not always star hunting and cutting our roster, making stupid
yeah,
moves. And now they have the flexibility of, okay, Evan Fournier is still a guy they can take a look at that I either think they can trade with a year left on his deal, or he might be an expiring, which might actually be better for them. But I think he still has a little bit of time on his deal. Josh Hart is somebody to take a look at. He's another restricted free agent, but I think he's an interesting guy for them to take a look at in terms of re-signing. And Julius
mhm,
Randle, coming off an All NBA season, is a guy that we can have a conversation about as being a trade chip, and maybe that makes them better depending on who they get. So there's a lot of upside for the Knicks, despite the fact that Jimmy Butler took their soul.
Yeah, as he does to teams year in and year out. Jimmy Butler has done it once again now to the New York Knicks. But we talked honestly pretty positive about the Knicks so far. Julius Randle though, the way that he was able to here, I'm gonna give you his playoff numbers in terms of his averages this year. He played 10 games. Yes, he was injured. Firstly, in the regular season, fantastic season, 25, 10, 45% from the field, 34% from three. In the playoffs, 16 points, 3.5 assists, 8 rebounds, 37% from the field, 26% from three, and under 71% at the free throw line. Horrendous. Absolutely horrendous performance from Julius Randle. Under 50% true shooting is just unacceptable from your all NBA player. So, Jay, I'm going to throw this back to you because we did this segment last week when it came to Jordan Poole. We're going to be basically doing the same thing to Julius Randle. Jay, what are we doing here?
Oh man, another edition of Would You Rather TV. Got to get another little slick stat out on Julius Randle.
Randle.
Julius Randle averaged 25.1 points per game
Yeah.
during this regular season. Julius Randle has only reached 25 points in a postseason game once in 2 series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. He had a 24-point game here or there, but the only 25-point game he had was that first game coming back, actually in this Miami series, coming off the injury. Other than that, ain't been too great. But like I said before on TV, we are playing a good old game of Would You Rather. Again, I don't know if this is going to become a new staple on the podcast or not, but I figured that it'd be an interesting little game to play with our good pal Julius Randle, and probably the last time we will end up talking about him in a Knicks uniform. I'm just saying. But
yeah.
Nonetheless, we're going to go through the list, and I put together a pretty solid list of about 10 guys. TV actually helped me put this list together as well, and we're going to go through them. Would you rather Julius Randle edition? First up, Julius Randle or Kyle Kuzma?
Ooh. Quick question. Are we taking contracts into account?
I think we got to take the player as is. I think we're going to do player as is because we did this last week where I think if you took contracts into account, it was not going to lean too much in Jordan Poole's favor.
True. I would still pick Randle over Kuzma. I think that Kuzma has shown some good things with the Washington Wizards, but Julius Randle I think can kind of backpack an offense a bit more in terms of playoff performance. We haven't seen Kuzma in the playoffs since the Lakers uniform, so I really don't have any something to go off with there as a Washington Wizard. But I would have Julius Randle right now. I would have him.
I think I would take Julius Randle too, but I think Kyle Kuzma has a defensive upside that we could really start to favor if he continues to unlock that portion of his role. And he's a big shot taker, and he's not afraid. And if he's given the keys, we've seen it in Washington. If you allow him to be a bit more of an offensive engine as a secondary or tertiary option and be a little bit more aggressive about doing so, he's able to put up some decent numbers. So I'm going to take Julius Randle, but I don't think it's by much. Next up, Julius Randle or John Collins?
This one's gonna be a bit easier. I would take Julius Randle. I think the idea of John Collins is better than John Collins, the player itself. Someone who is an athletic 4, who can hit the 3, who we keep saying that, someone who's a rim runner. He hasn't really been showing much of that in the Atlanta Hawks uniform over the past 2 seasons, especially. He's always constantly in the trade block. I feel like Julius Randle is a bit more of a for sure thing. If John Collins moves on to a different situation and fulfills his potential, I think a conversation can be had. But right now, it's again the idea of John Collins, a player, is still kind of just like sitting there, not being fulfilled yet. So let me give me Julius Randle.
Yeah, I think I gotta agree with you on that one as well. I think I'm gonna take Julius Randle over John Collins. John Collins kind of falls into the Jonathan Isaac Hall of Fame. He's one of those guys that like if you get the version of the player based off what you envision him as being, he's one of the best players at his position. But when you look at what he actually gives you, it gives you a much more realistic point of view on what he can provide. Now, again, like you mentioned beforehand, on a different team, maybe he's unlocked, maybe he's considered as too dependent on Trae Young based on their connection that they have on the floor, and it's kind of minimize his overall game in terms of what
Yeah.
he could do as an individual basketball player. But Julius Randle, like you said, I think might just be considered as a more of a for sure thing. And that's probably what kind of helps his case. But John Collins has the upside that could easily make
Yeah.
him probably better than Julius Randle if given
Yes.
the right opportunity. Okay,
Yes.
next up, Julius Randle or Jeremy Grant.
Jeremy Grant, we've seen him as a number one option before on the Detroit Pistons. We've seen him as a pseudo number three option there for the Trailblazer uniform. Again, I think that Jeremy Grant, like the idea of the player is there. I think his offense is still wonky in terms of like his ability to create his own shot, which Julius Randle has shown that he can in the regular season. I think maybe for the New York, as a player itself, I'll go Julius Randle. I think that Jeremy Grant would be a better fit next to Jalen Brunson, though.
So I'm actually going to go Jeremy Grant here, and I think this is
Interesting.
because of the fact that this is one of those comparisons where I think Julius Randle is hurt by the fact that I think he can only play one way. I think that Julius Randle has, although he has opened his game up significantly since being drafted by the Lakers. When he was drafted by the Lakers and is out of Kentucky, his initial play style was this bully ball, bang you in the paint initial play style, and now he's able to do a lot more off the dribble, create for himself. He's definitely improved as a player. But I think that Jeremy Grant's stint in Detroit, paired with his time in Denver and now in Portland, has given him the flexibility of being able to play within multiple different roles while also having this defensive upside that shows that he can be your second or third leading scorer on your team, along with giving you defensive upside. Julius Randle is a guy who, at least for this team, despite the fact that he was elected as All-NBA, he was the second best player on this team. Jalen Brunson was the best player on this team throughout the entirety of the
Yes.
regular season. I think that Jeremy Grant can play second fiddle to, for example, like you mentioned beforehand, I think Jeremy Grant can play second fiddle to a Jalen Brunson in a more effective and efficient way than a Julius Randle can. And I think that makes Jeremy Grant a better player in a sense because I think his plug and play ability next to other star capable players is something that helps him out in terms of translating from one team to the other versus Julius Randle, who I don't think you necessarily have to build the team around him, but I think Julius is he's going to do what he does. And
Yeah.
it's going to amount to those counting stats, but what else is it going to translate into? That's
Yeah.
kind of where he gets outed in the postseason. Is
Fair.
it doesn't amount to very much.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you know what? I like that. I like that idea. I like the point that you made there. Just Jeremy Grant's ability. I mean, we've seen him in like so many different roles that, we could see him that like just be able to kind of again like a plug and play system, kind of like a Mikal Bridges in that sense, where he could just put him into any system and he'll be able to succeed. So I do like that point.
All right, Julius Randle or Christian Wood?
Christian Wood cannot defend anything. Same thing with Julius Randle, to be fair, but at least Julius Randle could do more for you on the offensive end. I think this one is more of one of the easier ones. Give me Julius Randle.
I think I'm gonna take Julius Randle just out of the fact that he can create for himself a lot more than
Yeah,
Christian Wood can. I think Christian Wood is just a microwave scorer in a big's body. Like I think that's
yeah,
just what he's delegated as, and it's tough because I think that Christian Wood has more upside than Julius in terms of what I think he could do, but I think Julius somehow, even despite this postseason, I think you can say Julius is clearly like proven more in terms of what
yeah,
his overall ability is. It's
yes,
weird. This is not as much of the hate Julius Randle podcast as most people probably came into. So everybody kind
yeah,
of pay attention to this. We're trying to give
yeah,
Julius Randle his love, but we're also trying to be a little realistic about where he stands amongst
yeah.
some of the better forwards. Next up, Julius Randle or Bobby Portis?
Bobby Portis. I'm gonna go Julius Randle. I think that Bobby Portis again, fantastic in his role, but that's really all he is. He's a fantastic six man off the bench. I don't think there's much more you can really involve in his game. He's not an elite defender. He's a good rebounder. He could, again, it's kind of like Christian Wood. He is a microwave scorer in a big's body, and sort of in a sort of sense where I think you can like if you give him more opportunities, he can easily average a 20 and 10.
Mm.
But yeah, the defensibility isn't there. I just don't think that he's going to be able to backpack an offense. Kind of like a Julius Randle. Give me Julius Randle by a significant margin, I believe, still.
All right, so now I'm gonna ask one more jokey one, I
Yeah.
guess, and then I'm turning up the heat on some of these. And
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna include somebody that I didn't put in this list. I'm gonna replace somebody
Okay.
else. The jokey one I'm gonna ask next is Julius Randle or Obi Toppin.
His own teammate? Jeez, man. We're pitting him against his own teammate. To be
Hey
fair,
man.
I mean, I talked about this in the previous episode. Julius Randle has played so bad to play, like at some points in the playoffs, that he had to be benched before Obi Toppin and just to end games just because of how bad he was playing. But come on, I mean, hopefully Obi Toppin can show us more in the offensive end if he does get more opportunity. But it's Julius Randle.
I think Julius Randle is a better player. I think Obi Toppin just gives the Knicks an element that Julius Randle doesn't with his effort level. I think Julius
Sure,
Randle,
for
when you
sure.
talk about easily getting disengaged, Julius Randle is one of those guys who can disappear and it's noticeable. Just through things like body language and things of that nature, versus Obi Toppin can come in and immediately spark a team, and
Mhm.
it translates. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think Julius Randle is better. Now, okay, let's start getting into stuff that's really heated. Let's talk about former teammate Julius Randle or Brandon Ingram.
Bi. I'm giving you
Bi's been
the
snubbed a lot these days.
Yeah, people. I mean, the injury too. Like people just haven't seen him as much this year as they have in previous years. But healthy Bi over against Julius Randle, you've seen Bi take over in playoff games and be able to just will his team just because of his pure scoring ability. Give me Brandon Ingram.
Okay, I'm gonna take Bi as well. I think Bi slept on a ton, and
Hmm.
I think that when Bi is given the keys in the ways that Julius Randle has, when Bi's played without Zion Williamson mainly, I guess is the best facet that we've seen of this.
Hmm.
Bi's been a demon, bro. So
Yes,
an
yes, yes,
all-star
yes.
caliber player. I'm gonna switch out the guy I had on this list for his teammate, Julius Randle or Mikal Bridges.
Give me Mikel. Give me Mikel. I think that Mikel has shown in the Brooklyn Nets uniform that he is more than what the Suns role kind of portrayed him as. He is I think a better shot creator than we thought he was going to be. Now, can he be your number one guy? Probably not, but he's shown that he has that ability. One of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Will he reach All NBA status like Julius Randle? But I think this is like kind of what we're talking about in terms of Julius Randle conversation. The
Mm-hmm.
counting stats can only go so far with him, and like as the last two postseasons have shown with him in it, doesn't really translate to really good playoff basketball. We've seen Mikal Bridges like become sort of an anchor of a defense on a finals team as well. So give me Mikal.
Yeah, and I think the only reason why this is actually even a question is because of the fact that you have to ask yourself, is what we saw from the back half of Mikal Bridges' season, specifically with the Brooklyn Nets, is it real? Is it long-term
Yes.
translatable? Or was it a flash in the pan thing that everybody was like, whoa, this is the first time we're seeing Mikal Bridges with the ball in his hands for longer than 3 seconds, and he can
Hmm.
do some stuff that we didn't get to see him do before. But if we get a summer to scout it, I think we'll be able to shut that off. I think the question is, are teams going to be able to shut the water off on Mikal, or was a lot of what we saw in the back half of the year the real deal when Mikal is given the opportunity? Nonetheless, I think that Mikal Bridges has that kind of upside. I think a lot of what we did see was translatable,
Hmm.
and I think we saw some of the stuff we saw with the Brooklyn Nets was stuff that we were seeing during times when D Book was injured for the Phoenix Suns. So it wasn't like it was just completely all off base. It was something that was slowly culminating throughout the season as it is. It'll be interesting to see what a full season of it looks like. We've seen plenty guys ball out for half a year and then kind of get humbled after the summer tape comes out, right? But
Yeah.
I'm going to take Mikal Bridges nonetheless because I'm going to believe in what we saw.
Yeah.
The last guy I'm going to pick, or there's two other guys I'm going to pick on this list. The next guy is going to be Julius Randle or Draymond Green.
This might be surprising. Give me Draymond. I think that his like even though he's not gonna be able to put up the points that Julius does, the assists, the rebounds, the defensive capabilities, he still was an All NBA defensive player this year, and his ability to kind of influence a culture for good or for bad. I think at times for the Golden State Warriors, but we've seen that Draymond Green's a winner. He is able to kind of again like change kind of like the like completely just like motivate his teammates as well, and I think that's like an edge that like a New York Knicks team would be sorely missing. I give me Draymond, man.
I think I agree with you for that reason. I feel like again, Draymond is weird because he falls into that category where if you're comparing him to Julius Randle just strictly off the counting stats, this isn't close. This
Yeah.
isn't a close conversation at all, and it favors Julius Randle heavily. But I think those other intangible things are what makes you feel a little bit stronger about Draymond Green because I don't think we've ever seen Draymond Green quit on his team before. I hate to imply that about Julius Randle, but we've seen in many instances, including just postseason instances like these. Again, a guy who averaged 25 points per game and they hasn't reached 25 points in a postseason game aside from one occurrence, and it happened to be at the beginning of this past series. I think that when you look at what Draymond Green provides and the consistency in which he provides it, despite the fact that it might not look as pretty or it might not, be an all NBA caliber stat line, I think it's translatable to winning basketball games in a way that Julius Randle. It's funny because I'm going to use this quote from the player we're talking about to describe the player that we're talking about. There are 82 game players. I think that's a Julius Randle. And then there are 16 game players. And I think that Draymond Green fits that category a little bit more. And despite the fact that I don't want to devalue the regular season, the big lights time is when things really need to happen. And Draymond Green has been able to show over a significant period of time that when those times come, he is able to step up. Now, it's getting a little tough with him getting up in age, but the fact that he's still an all NBA caliber defender at this age, backpacking a defense that kind of didn't have a ton of other solid defensive personnel around him, it shows that the IQ, the defensive attributes, they're gonna help him continue to build on what's already been a long career. And then the last guy that we're gonna do, because this game has already been kind of long, but we had to have a solid 10. TV, you're gonna get a little excited about this one. Julius Randle or Pascal Siakam?
Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam.
Oh,
I've been saying this. I've been saying this for years. Siakam is a guy who I know people are going to be looking at that one postseason in the bubble, saying, "Oh, this guy like completely chokes in the playoffs." This guy was an NBA champion, had a 32-point game against the Golden State Warriors in the finals. This guy can perform in the playoffs. He is a multiple-time All NBA, All-Star player. Even to this day, the defensive ability is still there. The shot making ability, give me Pascal Siakam, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Honestly, I think a lot of people are gonna let this season and kind of the back nine of last season. Mainly this season.
Yeah.
I feel like this season is gonna leave a bad taste in the mouth of people who were very optimistic about the Toronto Raptors, and specifically if you were a Pascal Siakam believer, this season did not necessarily help your case. But I don't necessarily think that the season that Julius Randle put together this year necessarily helps his case in this conversation either, because I feel as though they both do similar things, but I think that Pascal Siakam does all of them at a higher level.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the thing that separates the two. I think I don't want to say they're both the same player because I think Pascal is a significantly better defender than Julius Randle.
Yes.
But I think at least offensively, they do a lot of the similar things that Julius Randle is much more gung-ho about taking threes. I don't know what that's about. But besides that, they both are very solid on-ball offensive creators. I just think that Pascal Siakam can do a lot more in that role than Julius Randle was capable of. And I think potential hot take, we'll end up probably talking about this a little bit more in the offseason. I think that if the Raptors are able to maintain a majority of the core they have set, they're going to be very scary next year, depending on who they bring in as a head coach.
Thank you for believing us, man. I don't even think I have that much belief in us, but that I really do appreciate it. That was Would You Rather with Julius Randle. Do you guys think we messed anything up? Let us know down below. Now we're going to be looking forward to the conference finals, and we are going to be providing our predictions for both series. Let's start off with the game that's just started by the time you guys are listening to it. I think game one will be done by the time this episode comes out. But we're going to start by discussing The Los Angeles Lakers. Oh boy, they are here in the conference finals. Taking on the Denver Nuggets, and Nikola Jokic is just amazing postseason play so far. But Jay, what are you looking for? What is that one thing that you're looking for coming into this series, and what do you think is going to be like the biggest difference maker?
AD versus Jokic. It's the difference in this entire series. It's been a long time since they've matched up. Obviously, this is a rematch of the bubble series in the same exact Western Conference final setting. But we have to remember that even back then, these two teams were different. Denver was just kind of starting to get into his ascension.
Yeah,
Nikola Jokic was not necessarily still an unknown commodity, but I think people were still kind of skeptical about just how good he really was
yeah,
slash is, right? And back then, a great example of just a difference in these teams is Anthony Davis used to play the four in the bubble,
yeah,
right? This was back when he was still a super big advocate for playing the power forward position, probably still is. But
yeah,
back then, they were very much accommodating to it, and Dwight Howard started at center for them,
yeah,
right? So this team is much different now because Anthony Davis plays the five for this team. So it's
yeah,
a direct matchup between Nikola Jokic and Anthony Davis, which in that postseason matchup we hadn't seen. Even for example, I think this Denver team and this Lakers team hasn't played each other since before the trade deadline of this
yeah,
regular season. So these two teams haven't even clashed since the trade deadline, which is where the new iteration of this Los Angeles team has really ascended into
yeah,
the team we see now. So it's interesting how both of these teams are significantly different. Now, granted, it's a couple of years different, so of course a
yeah,
lot's gonna change.
yeah,
But it's crazy just how much is different about these two teams a couple years later, but yet here they both are matching up against each other once again. Nikola Jokic versus Anthony Davis is the one though, because I feel like whoever gets the best out of that matchup is gonna win the series because I think that they are going to anchor how this series goes. Whoever is the leader between those two is going to dictate the play style of how this series runs.
yeah, 100%. That is the marquee matchup in the series, especially like you mentioned. Anthony Davis has been constantly playing the five now, so this is a direct matchup.
Mm.
One of the things I'm going to be looking for in this series is how are the Lakers going to defend Jokic? Because you could do it straight up, just him versus Anthony Davis, but we've seen him, especially what the Suns did. They were like, oh, let's try to make Jokic beat him himself. Well, he did. He ended up beating him by himself at times as well. So like daring him to do so still led to the same exact result. But it's going to be very interesting because I know this is like more of a jokey quote, but Darvin Ham said in like the preview of the series saying, and because he was asked, "How are you gonna stop Nikola Jokic?" Oh, we're gonna wait outside of his house and kidnap him.
I saw that. I
It's
saw
like
that.
you might have to do that because what is so impressive and like what makes Jokic such a dominant player is no matter what you throw at him, double teams, single coverage, he can dominate you anywhere. He is one of the best passers in the league, and LeBron James acknowledged that. Especially, like he also like talked about Jokic, in like the preseason interviews and stuff like that. He is just that dominant of a player, and you kind of have to kind of pick your poison with him. You're gonna leave him on an island, Anthony Davis. You're gonna let Anthony Davis really like exert all of his effort on the defensive end trying to do that, or are you going to double him? And that leaves open shots for KCP, who has had a really good playoffs so far. Bruce Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray. These are the questions that the Los Angeles Lakers have to ask themselves. But Nikola Jokic, especially recently, has proven too. It's like, oh, you want me to shoot 25 times a game? I'll do that. I'll score 50 points on y'all, and that's what he's been able to do as well. Sure, the Nuggets are not the best defensive team. I don't see really like much defensive help in terms of like trying to deal with Anthony Davis, especially. But as seen in the playoffs, yes, he has a defensive effort, but his offensive game has been kind of up and down. Nikola Jokic, completely different scenario. And we've seen like multiple Nuggets players, whether it's KCP have a big performance. Bruce Brown had a 24-point performance in one of these games in the playoffs. Michael Porter Jr. is like a ticking time bomb that can go off at any point. And Jamal Murray, man, Jamal Murray, if he is able to showcase like a 25, 27 point per game outing, that's what could really tip this series into the Nuggets' favor. But on the Lakers side of things, we keep doubting the supporting cast of theirs, but they're performing. They are
Mm-hmm.
performing. I mean, LeBron James hasn't been at his best, but luckily for them, he played his best game against the Warriors in Game 6. Anthony Davis has played really good, especially on the defensive end. But is there going to be that specific third guy, or can they continue winning with with someone different every night being their third guy? Whether it was the Lonnie Walker game, whether it was Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, are they able to win this way against a Denver Nuggets team who has proven to be probably the best offense in this entire playoffs, and has also turned it up on the defensive end. Again, the complete team with guys that you know who are going to be on the floor and who are able to produce, versus one of the best duos in the league in Anthony Davis and LeBron James, but with a very erratic third option which can change at every single point of the game.
Yeah, man. I think the biggest thing too is just like again, one of the more notable things about the Western Conference is how much power has been featured
Yeah,
throughout every single series, and obviously that's going to be very prominent. But I think the unsung heroes are going to have to be pretty huge in this one as well.
yeah,
I think that of course, for example, Aaron Gordon is probably going to be somebody huge in terms of the defensive assignment, whether it be against Anthony Davis or LeBron James.
yeah,
I think interestingly enough, Austin Reeves has been a big time player and probably their third best player. Talk about the Lakers this entire postseason. He's really showing up on both ends of the floor. The Lakers have been able to rely on the fact that, oddly enough, this depth that they've built, it's starting to kind of culminate into some real, like, legitimate play. Dennis Schroeder had a very good series this past series against Devin Booker defensively and offensively. I think that Lonnie Walker, again, although he kind of started the series out slow coming off the bench, he was a guy that at times had timely baskets. Excuse me, not covering Devin Booker. I mean Steph
yeah,
Curry.
yeah,
He was able to get timely baskets and be able to really come in and do what he does best. Same thing for the Denver Nuggets. I think that every role player for the Denver Nuggets understands what they do best and they maximize it. And then it gets even better because Nikola Jokic tends to bring out even more of them, more out of them, excuse me. Um, and sneaky foreshadowing, but I got a weird feeling that KCP is going to have like a 4-3 three pointers night, a 4 or 5 3 pointers knockdown night for some reason.
yeah,
Maybe not in terms of some kind of like Lakers revenge matchup,
yeah.
but I just think that KCP is just going to have a very interesting series for some reason.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see that. And also, one of the players before we move on to our actual predictions that I'm gonna be looking out for, Michael Porter Jr. on both the offensive and
That's a good
defensive
one.
side of things,
That's a good one.
especially because they're gonna have to hide him defensively. So who are you gonna hide him out on the Lakers? Maybe Jared Vanderbilt. I guess that's probably your best bet if he does start, but he doesn't play like too many minutes. So are you gonna put him on Rui Hachimura, where Rui is a stronger, more physical player than him? Or put him on Austin Reeves. And you know what, Austin Reeves, he knows how to draw them fouls, and I think that they could put Michael Porter Jr. into a lot of actions and probably get him to foul trouble really early, which is taking away one of the top scoring options for the Denver Nuggets. So that is another thing to watch out for. If he could become that reliable third option, 20 plus points per game, when a lot of the attention is going to be on Jokic, is going to be on Jamal Murray. Again, another factor that could tip the series into the Denver Nuggets' favor. But Jay, final prediction for the series. Who do you got winning and advance, and then how many games to advance to the NBA Finals?
TV, I'm gonna give you two scenarios, but I'm gonna obviously tell you the one that I'm leaning with. There's only two ways that this goes in my mind. Denver gets this done in 5, or the Lakers get it done in 7. That's
Ooh,
how I feel. I feel like those are the only two routes that this goes. I'm gonna go with the Nuggets in 5 though.
in 5 games after all we've seen from the Lakers?
Dude, I think TV. I know this might be sick, bro, but I think we even mentioned this. If it wasn't last pod, it was the pod before that. Bro, I got this weird feeling, bro, that the Denver Nuggets have been staring us in the face as one of the prohibited favorites to win the chip or at least come out of the Western Conference this entire time. And we've all been trying to give ourselves reasons why. they shouldn't be the team to come out the West. The Lakers are hitting it. The Steph Curry led Warriors are the defending champions. They're gonna come in. They're gonna show up in the postseason. Phoenix got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. We kept giving ourselves reasons after reasons for why we thought that teams were better than the team that finished with the best record in the West to begin with the guy who might, depending on what side of the fence you lay it on, might have deserved to win his third MVP in a row,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, look, man, I it's weird because I told you that this Lakers snowball was brewing. I told you this right before the
Yeah.
postseason started, and it's still up and kicking. But I'm so tired of overlooking these Denver Nuggets, man. I'm so tired of overlooking these Denver Nuggets. And the thing is, we can play this game as disrespectfully as we want, but let's just put it straight. Memphis isn't deep. Memphis isn't as deep as Denver is,
The
and
Warriors.
Golden State isn't as deep as Denver is. And I think offensively, I don't think either one of those teams had a better player better than Nikola Jokic. And despite how I feel about Steph Curry as an offensive player, I think Nikola Jokic is the best offensive player in the NBA right now.
100%. This is a tough series to call, especially like you mentioned. We've been waiting for this Lakers snowball effect to die down, and it's still rolling. It's still rolling, and we're in the conference finals. We're in
Yeah.
the conference finals, and it's still here. Tough series to call, man. Tough series to call. I'm gonna go Nuggets in 6. I'm gonna go Nuggets in
Okay.
6. I'm not
It's
gonna go
probably
as
a better
bold as say
bet.
Nuggets in 5. I'm not gonna go as bold, but I do agree with the fact that I feel like we've been making excuses all season long as to why the Nuggets aren't the best team out west. They've
Yeah.
proven to us. Sure, I mean, like forget the last month of the regular season where they basically locked the number 1 seed and they weren't trying. Let's just forget about that last.
Right,
But
right.
besides that, clearly the number 1 team in the West. Least problems. There's a reason why we don't talk about the problems within this, like why we don't talk about the Denver Nuggets, because there's no problems there. There's no internal drama, no external drama. They go out, they ball, and they've been doing it this entire postseason long, and they showed it in like their final win against the Phoenix Suns. They're deep. They can get contributions from basically anyone in that 6-7 man rotation, even getting like good production from like rookies like Christian Brown. Like honestly, like this team runs deep, and the Lakers team hasn't had to deal with a team with this much depth, with this dominant of a player in Nikola Jokic. And like I said, it's not like Steph Curry where you could just get the ball out of his hands. It's not like John Morant where you just try and like pack the paint and try and like that's how you like mitigate his offensive game. Whatever you do with Jokic, he's gonna find a way to like make that like an advantage towards the Denver Nuggets, and that's something they have not faced this season this postseason so far. The Jamal Murray factor is still there. He's been fantastic this postseason. The depth, I think they've shown too that they have defensive personnel that can potentially match with the Los Angeles Lakers offense. I gotta go with the Denver Nuggets at 6. I think that they've been proving us time and time again that look, we're still trucking along. We're still that team that we've shown in the regular season. And I think that continues on, and I think this leads to Nikola Jokic having his first ever finals appearance.
Yeah, and I even want to piggyback off of your X factor and kind of lean the opposite direction in this sense. You talked about how Michael Porter Jr. could affect this team defensively because of having to hide him and different things of that nature. Let's also look at the fact that Michael Porter Jr. is also a 6'9", 6'10" offensive machine. If they try to actually make him aggressive, that's going to be a big point for Michael Malone in this series in particular. If they can make him an aggressive offensive threat, I don't think there's anybody on the Lakers that can check him, personally.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I think makes Denver that much more dangerous is we haven't had like a Michael Porter Jr. game yet, right? And I
Yeah.
don't know if we're due for one. There's certain players that you say, oh, we're due for a game from them. I don't know if we're due for a Michael Porter Jr. game, but I think the fact that that's still something that could come out of their back pocket is intriguing because we know what Jamal Murray does. We know what Nikola Jokic is like. Aaron Gordon, KCP, and those boys, they play their role. I think that if Michael Porter can really just kind of jump out the face, even if it's for one game, I think that Michael Porter Jr. could be the difference in this series because I think one game that he has where he goes off could be a significant difference maker in the results of the postseason, in the results of their matchup. So yeah, I would even flip it in that sense. I feel like the Denver Nuggets still have a ton in their back pocket. While as far as I'm concerned, I think the Lakers have milked everything that they have in terms of the little wrinkles they can throw out there. We've seen everything.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Like you mentioned, like I mean, like we mentioned from both sides, Michael Porter Jr. could really swing the series on either side of the floor, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to be a common theme when looking at this series from game to game, like what he's been able to produce, and if he's going to be able to stay on the floor when a team like the Lakers is definitely going to be hunting him out as one of those mismatches. We have one more series to talk about, and we're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Another rematch of the bubble. The Miami Heat taking on the Boston Celtics. This is the third time they face each other in the conference finals over the last 4 years. If anything, this has been a legit rivalry, like one of the very few in the NBA. But we talked about this before the episode. The Miami Heat have been giving what, a 3% chance to win the series and advance to the finals? That's
Crazy.
nuts. That is absolutely nuts. And I think that I don't know about you, but I think they're being heavily underrated in the series. Jay, what is something that you're going to be looking for, and like what is like your key takeaway?
Can Jason Tatum be consistent? That is the name of the game. Me and my brother were talking about this the other day, and it's easily one of the biggest conundrums that we have in the NBA right now is Jason Tatum might be one of the most confusing guys that we consider as an all-star, if not superstar caliber talent that
Yeah,
we have in the league. Because it's one day you feel like he could be a top five player in the league, not at his position, a top five player in the league with the kind of talent and upside he has. And then the next day, he makes you wonder if he's even the number one on his team.
yeah.
And me and my brother were having an interesting conversation. You know who else has a very similar comparison to that?
Hmm.
Paul George. And
Fair.
so the weird thing about that dichotomy is as the stakes continue to rise, Jason Tatum is going to have to learn to put together consistency because letting those flop games happen, it costs you more and more with every round you get further into the postseason. So starting a game where the first 28 minutes you go without a basket and then you get 16 in the second half and it's oh thank goodness we won. I don't know if that floats in a series against Miami. I don't know if a game where Malcolm Brogdon and Jalen Brown have to combine for I think it was 51 or something along those
Yeah,
lines, but Jason Tatum has a stinker and you win. I don't know if you can get away with that against the Miami Heat. So I think the real question is which Jason Tatum are we gonna get? We don't need the boy to average 51 for
yeah,
Christ's sake. We don't need him to be putting up playoff career numbers on a night to night basis. I think to beat the Miami Heat. I think the Celtics are deep enough where they don't even need him to be completely insane in this
yeah,
series to win. But he has to be consistent. Jalen
yeah,
Brown has been their most consistent player, despite the fact that he might not be their best player right now.
yeah.
If Jason Tatum can put together a strong series against Miami, a full series, I think that the Celtics handle this business and they handle it easily. But I think if you account for the inconsistencies of Jason Tatum, it makes the series feel like it's going to go a little longer than it should.
Let me take that a step further, Jay. Can the Boston Celtics keep focus? Well, it's because it's good. Honestly, you could take about with Jason Tatum, and I
Fair.
and I agree with every single point you made, especially with him looking like the best player in the league one night, and then him going like starting off the game 1 for 14. Like he has such like his highs are like some of the highest highs in the NBA, but his lows look like he is gonna absolutely kill the Boston Celtics, look like it almost did in Game 6 against the Philadelphia 76ers. But man, I'm just worried about the Boston Celtics and the fact that they look at the people across from them and just don't take them seriously enough. They look at the other side and they're like, oh, we only got to. I'm just worried that they're going to look at the other side and saying, look, we only got to worry about Jimmy Butler. Are we really going to trust Kyle Lowry? Are we going to trust Max Strus, Gabe Vincent to keep them in the series? No, we just got to focus on Jimmy Butler. But what's scary about the Miami Heat team, and I do think the Boston Celtics rightfully so are favored, and maybe not as high as they should be. I think we should be giving the Miami Heat more respect. But you're catching the Miami Heat at a time where everything is just clicking. Everything is just clicking like right here, right now. And although you can look at the regular season, although you can look at the stats that these guys have produced in your regular season matchups, I would say this is the one series where you look at those guys on the roster saying, "We throw it out the window. What have they been doing recently? They've been like surprising everyone. Duncan Robinson has made it back into the rotation, and this is a team that's missing a key rotation piece, and Victor Oladipo as well. Like this is something. This is like a series where, again, kind of how the Lakers are on the West. You're just catching the Miami Heat at the wrong time. You do not want to face a team with nothing to lose, with a team who has, how would I say, a team again with nothing to lose, and also with like everything to gain in this situation. The Boston Celtics, they're looking at this. They came off the finals appearance last year. They're going to this season with the exact same goal, the exact same intentions. If they lose out to the number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference, that's on them. They finished as the number 2 team in the NBA. You know, the Miami Heat, they beat the number 1 seed already. This shouldn't come as a surprise why the Miami Heat could make this a series. The Boston Celtics have shown that they could take the eye off the ball sometimes. As Doc Rivers said in the last series, sometimes they play with their food too much. This could happen in the series, and it's like one, drop game at home, one mistake, and the Miami Heat are going to be able to pounce, and they've been able to do so this entire playoff run, and I don't see a reason why that's going to be able to stop now against this Boston Celtics team, who are the epitome of inconsistency, in my opinion. I just think that this series is going to be a lot more closer than a lot of people think.
I think I agree with you there. I just also believe that this is the one series out of this entire postseason run where I think the Celtics will wake up, and I think that they will pay this a lot more credence than they did the other two series, because I think that they understood in the two previous series that not only were they favorites, but when you look at the circumstances and you apply past history, even with playing with their food, so to speak, they were simply just the better team outright. And I think it was something that was significantly stood out. And you even look back to certain examples, like, again, them playing against the Philadelphia 76ers. We mentioned it earlier on, talking about Joel Embiid's quote about them always kicking their tail. This is a team that Boston, yes, they can poke their chest out and be a little too confident, but that confidence is kind of built off of resume that they've been able to stack up over the years, including how they've been able to beat up on a team like Philly. Miami is not one of those teams that they've been able to just pick on throughout the last 3 to 4 seasons. Miami has given them a lot of trouble in their meetings as of recent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the Celtics are going to take them very seriously. And I think that the Celtics understand, especially with what's on the line, that they're going to have to get this team up out of there quick because, like you mentioned beforehand, this momentum is turning very much in their favor, very similar to the Lakers, coming from a similar place as well, coming out of the play-in tournament. And they have been on a roll just like the Lakers have been, and it seems like this train is not stopping anytime soon. But I think the Celtics are going to be that team, though.
I hope you're right. I thought the wake up call was Game 5 against the Atlanta Hawks when they gave them a lot bigger of a fight than they thought. But then once again with the 76er team, they saw a hobbling Joel Embiid and they kind of let the series go on for too long. I just do not trust their focus in this series. But I'm gonna throw this question back to you as a final prediction. Who do you got going to the finals and in how many games?
I have the Celtics doing this in 6 games. And I think it's because at the end of the day, I think they're going to be focused. I think they're going to take Miami seriously. I think that they're more talented than Miami. I think their upside is much higher than Miami. But I think that Miami's just got too much going for them right now for them to lay down and get swept or gentlemen swept. I don't see that being the case. I also think that Jimmy Butler is just too dang good. I don't care who's going to be able to cover him. There's been a lot of guys that have been throwing single teams with just their best defender, double teams, and it hasn't been able to slow him down. But I think that the overall barrage that the Celtics can kind of unleash with their 3-point shooting style, something that the other two teams in Atlanta and Philadelphia weren't able to do against them
Mhm.
either. I think that the Celtics 3-point shooting is a big time equalizer, and I don't think they've been able to really utilize it to its potential throughout this postseason. I think this is a series where they might definitely want to turn to high volume threes as a way to not only speed this game up, but also kind of force Miami to play more offensive basketball. Because we know Miami can get down defensively.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The
Yeah.
issue is whether or not they can compete with you on the offensive side of the ball, and can they score at the same capacity as you. And I think that if the Celtics play their up tempo, high 3-point volume style that got them a ton of wins in the regular season, Miami's going to be in trouble. But Miami's going to get some games. They're too good not to.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so too. I think this is going to be a very close series as well. I don't think it's going to like lean heavily on either side as much as the odds say it is. Give me the Celtics in 7. I think this is the series. This is going to be a series that goes the distance, very similar to how last year's conference finals went, where that crazy game 7, Jimmy Butler tried to take a three at the end to try and like send him to the finals, but they weren't able to. I think that the Celtics at the end of the day, again, the talent is there, and I think the biggest difference maker this year compared to last year, where again they almost choked the Miami Heat, Malcolm Brogdon's going to be massive. Malcolm
I
Brogdon is going to
agree.
be absolutely massive because there are times we've seen in this postseason, the regular season and in postseasons in the past, kind of when you have Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, or Marcus Smart ending games, it ends in a lot of confusion, a lot less, certainty, and just a lot of like kind of like rushed and bad shots at the end. Adding Malcolm Brogdon this year, the sixth man of the year, provides an option for you where you have someone in the hands who you just know is going to make the right decision, make the right pass, take the right shot, and just be able to calm down an offense that I think is going to get bothered by the Miami Heat a lot. There's going to be a lot of erraticness in terms of the Celtics offense, as if there isn't that already. But there's going to be one guy who's going to be able to calm things down, especially at the end of games, which is going to be key. I think that's going to be Malcolm Brogdon. I do think in the Miami Heat side of things that the Jimmy Butler factor is still there, and I think that he's going to have some absolutely fantastic games in this series. But it's asking a lot out of some of the role players. I mean, Bam is great. In terms of consistency, he still hasn't really got there yet, but that's still asking a lot from like even some of the other players when you don't have Tyler Hero. That's asking a lot from Duncan Robinson again, Gabe Vincent. I believe it's one of the Martin brothers, Kyle Lowry. I mean, it's just like these guys have been performing so well so far in the playoffs, and I just don't think that the Celtics are going to let up 4 times in a series. They might do it once or twice, maybe 3 times. I don't think they're going to do it 4. I think the Celtics know what's at stake here, and hopefully Joe Mazzulla gets them in that right mindset, saying, you know what, we got to come into this series, step on their throats, and make sure they're not going to be able to breathe and just keep applying that pressure. They know who's in front of them. They've faced him again multiple times in the past. They know what Jimmy Butler's capable of. They're just gonna have to do it. They're just gonna have to try and stay focused. And I think that's something that's gonna be tough. But at the end of the day, I think they're gonna be able to pull it off. I think the series goes this. It's gonna be a fun ass series. Give me Celtics in 7.
I like your pick, and I think it's fair, and think it gives a lot more credence to Miami as well, that they are just as good as they were last year. And I think you mentioned it beforehand. A lot of their guys are kicking at a good time. Kyle Lowry's playing really well. Kevin Love is playing really well. We
Yeah.
mentioned Max Strus beforehand. You mentioned dusting off Duncan Robinson. Like, there's a lot to look forward to in this series. Obviously, we know it's going to be a competitive series because we've seen it. We've seen it a good handful of times. I will also note that the last couple of times that they faced each other under the Eastern Conference Finals umbrella, the Celtics have come out and win. I think they faced each other in the Eastern. These two teams have faced each other in the Eastern Conference Finals like 6 or 7 times, and I think it's nearly split down the middle
Yeah.
at this point. So we know we're in for a very long series. We know we're in for a hard-fought series, and we know we're due for some big moments. So it's going to be probably out of the two series, I think it might be the more exciting one to watch, even though I think there might be a little bit more grinding to it, a little bit more bully ball to it. I think it's still going to be one of the better series to watch out of the two. I think it is. Excuse me. I think it's going to be the better series out of the two to watch. Man, it could definitely go either way, but I think if the Celtics win, they cannot let it get to Game 7 again. I don't think they can let that happen again.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But I mean, you talked about grinding it out. That's you expect nothing less out of a Miami Heat series, and they don't care how fun it is. They're gonna be able to grind it out, and they're gonna be able to hopefully pull out another win and pull off another miracle. Imagine the Miami Heat an 8-seeded team in the NBA Finals. That would be absolutely insane. That would be nuts. Hopefully Jimmy could do it though. Let's see if Jimmy could pull it through once again. So those are our predictions for the 2 conference final series. Let us know down below what you guys think. Agree or disagree. Let us know down below either in this or in the Instagram comments. You could drop it down there. We're going to end up this episode with another Hit Your Free Throw podcast quiz. And Jay, even up till now, I have 2 quizzes here. I don't know which one to really go with. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you option A or option B without telling you which one.
Oh man.
Which one do you want to go with?
Let's go B, man. Let's go B. And hope I shoot myself in the foot.
Okay. I need you. This is gonna be a fun one, and I think I'm gonna add a caveat to the end of this, just so like you don't just so it gives you a better idea of what the list is.
Okay.
I need you to tell me the top 10 current NBA players with the highest points per game in their playoffs and in their playoff careers. Now, mind you, no game limit. There's no game limit, so it's not like minimum this amount of games. These guys could have played like 6 games in the playoffs in their career.
What the heck?
Less.
We're talking current? You said current players.
Top 10 current NBA players in order of points per game in their playoff careers.
Oh man. Okay. Whew, that's tough. Okay. KD.
He's number 2, 29.4.
Braun.
Number 3, 28.5.
Steph.
Number 11 did not make the list.
Oh, that's brutal. Luka.
Number 1, 32.5.
Okay. Come on now. Let's come correct now.
You got the top three.
D-Book.
Number 5, 28.
Yeah, that boy been balling this year, man. There's no way his PPG ain't up. Kawhi?
Nope, he is not on here. He is not. Remember, this is their playoff careers, not just this year.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, he didn't play this postseason.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking in general.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Kawhi's not on this list. I think he's top 20 though. I think he's top 20.
Jokic
just squeaks in at number 9, 27.2.
Ooh-wee. Okay. So I'm gonna go for because you said you threw in the caveat of saying it doesn't matter how many games they play. So for some reason I feel like that's gonna matter in a second. So I'm gonna give you 2. First one is one that I don't think it matters as much to that. Anthony Davis.
No, he's not on this list.
Okay, cool. But here's the flip. This is where I think your wild card comes in. Is Anthony Edwards on the list, though?
Number 4.
Okay.
With 1 points per game.
Okay. I was going to say, I knew you threw that caveat for some reason. So I'm like, it's got to be somebody recent. Donovan Mitchell?
Number 6, 27.8. You are missing number 7, number 8, and number 10.
Ooh, Ja Morant?
Number 8, 27.3, the best shooter in the league.
Let's cook. Okay. I'm sure he's on the outside, but I'm going to throw a name out just to get Jamal Murray?
He is just on the outside. I think he's number 13.
Ah, that's brutal. Okay, let's think. Jimmy?
Nope, he's not on this list. I'm not even sure if
he's not even crazy with PPG though. You're right.
Yeah.
He's not even crazy with PPG like
I'm gonna tell you right now, the last 2 guys on this list, have been in one playoff series each.
Whoa, what the heck? Um. Okay, wait. I'm not gonna cheat. I'm just gonna look at teams. That way I can at least like think here.
Yeah.
What the heck? Okay. You said only one?
Both of these guys have only had one playoff series to their
What
name.
the heck?
For one of them, think very recent.
Okay, wait. De'Aaron Fox.
Number 7,
Oh,
27.4 points
let's
per game.
freaking go.
27.
Let's
So you're just
freaking
missing number 10. This guy is a bucket. This guy's an absolute bucket, but you might have forgot his one playoff run.
damn, for real.
I mean, I don't think it's forgettable, just because I think it was like a lot more like I'd say this was a lot more of an entertaining series than we thought it was gonna be. This guy had such a good performance here.
What the heck? Is it a superstar caliber player?
I don't
Or is
think
this like
I think he's a one-time All-Star, but this guy I think we talked about him earlier in the episode. Yeah, I know I think he was probably he was like one of the guys you mentioned in the Julius Randle topic.
what? Jalen Brunson's PBG is like
Nope,
that?
nope, not him.
Wait,
You mentioned him in
what?
he was part of the this or that. I'll say that.
Oh, what the heck? I gotta go back to the list. Wait a minute. Holy. Dude.
I mean, you mentioned other guys too. I mean, it could be on the list. Could be someone you
That's
just
true. I
threw in
did.
there.
That's true. I did throw monkey wrenches into the list. So even looking back at it, that's crazy. No, you said one post. Christian Wood? No way.
No.
I say no way. One postseason my ass. There's no way.
That'd be so joke. Oh
What
my god.
the?
No, Christian Wood. It's okay.
Whoa.
I'll tell you right now, when he made the playoffs, their star player was out with injury, but they still put up a good fight. They started in the play-in tournament.
What the heck? See, because you threw me off when you said that, when you said the one postseason thing, because I was going to say Trae Young next,
No.
but he's not there.
Think
What?
Western Conference.
Okay, let's go to the Western Conference teams real quick and let's think about it.
One postseason appearance. They were one of the most like lovable teams to watch. I think this was last year. This is last postseason.
What? This one's not clicking. I'm not gonna lie. What position do they play?
He's a wing.
He's a wing? Oh my god, this does not.
His team was in his team was in the play-in this year.
Oh
His
man.
team was in the play-in this year in the West. They didn't make the playoffs, but they were in the play-in.
What the? Damn. Oh my god.
There's two teams that did not make the playoffs.
I know. Hold on. Shea?
Nope.
What the? Oh my.
Who's the other team? Who's the other team that didn't make the playoffs?
The other team that didn't make the playoffs was the Mavs, right?
No.
Talking about the Pels?
It was the Pels.
Wait. Oh, BI?
BI 27.
Oh, see, that's why I said you can't rely on the list because I changed those names last second. Wait,
Yeah.
okay. So, in my defense, how much did BI average in terms of like
27 flat, 27 points per game.
I'm telling you, be sleeping on BI, man. Even I'm doing it. I freaking love that guy, dude.
Yeah, no, he had a hell of a postseason against that Phoenix Suns team. Remember when that was a pretty close series. That was a pretty close series.
Yeah. That's why I get why you said it wasn't like forgettable because it was one of the more fun series. I understand. Now I see what you mean because that was one of those series where we were like, wow, if BI could just operate on this kind of level next to Zion Williamson, they would be unbeatable. But BI's role always changes significantly once Zion Williamson comes back. So
yeah.
Then there's all of these weird little holes and stuff. Wow, that's crazy, man. Sleeping on Bi mid pod is crazy.
That's crazy, especially because you were talking about sleeping on him like during
Yeah,
that segment
bro.
too.
But 27 is just I didn't know I just forgot how he balled out that way against Phoenix. Like I knew he was good,
Yeah.
but yeah, I remember a lot more moments like Jose Alvarado or like Trey
Yeah.
Murphy having a big series, like Chris Paul being competitive. I knew I mean not Chris Paul, CJ McCollum, excuse
Yeah.
me. But I know Bi balled out, but 27 PPG is crazy.
That is crazy, and yeah, that is the list. It was a fun list. It's definitely a fun list. That's why I
Oh.
had to put that caveat. Some of these guys like barely played in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
once you said it doesn't matter how many games he played, I was like, I'm gonna throw some wild. That's why the Anthony Edwards one, I was like, all right, I know he balled out. Can't believe I forgot about Bi though.
Yeah, that was a fun quiz. Let us know down below if you have any other quizzes. How'd you do in that quiz as well? Let us know down below. But Jay, we've reached another end to another fantastic episode. Before we sign out, what do you have to say to these beautiful people?
Hey, bro, look at it this way. We're gonna have a crazy conference finals. NBA lottery should be in the books by the time you're listening to this episode, which also means we're gonna know which team's getting Wimby on top of all of that.
Yes.
And then to kind of factor into some of our off-season stuff as well, there's a lot of head coaching vacancies, TV, which means it's gonna be a
Yes.
lot of movement this offseason. So it's gonna
Yes.
be interesting to see how everybody decides to move because there's gonna be a lot of interesting teams.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to be talking about all of them on the podcast, on the TikTok page, and all that. We will definitely let that. We will definitely. You can find all that information here on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. But this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to check out our individual socials down below. Remember to check out the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, podcast networks, and Spotify and Apple, all that good stuff. And we're going to be setting up for another episode. This is one of your co-hosts, TV. That's my other co-host, Jay. Hope you have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. Peace.